Okay, so I went ahead and started the recording. So good morning to you again. My name is Culture. This is my partner Maizan, and we're just going to have a 30 minute to 1 hour informational interview with you for our professional selling class. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
Okay, and how are you doing today?
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Great. You want to start off, Maizan?
Of course. So we're just going to go through the questions and we're just going to alternate one by one. To start off, just simply, how did you get started in B2B sales?
Yeah, so I started off in B2B sales about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now. I started out with, so going back several years, I started out in a retail background. So I started there and then I moved to business consumer sales. But also had within that time frame, kind of developed a lot of relationships with different reps for different vendors, as well as other people in the company. And then from there, um, frankly, the pandemic happened. There was an opening for a B2B position, and so applied for it and got it, and then kind of went from there. So kind of a bit of background, already having relationships with the vendors, and then you know also helped speak French too, so can reach other clients, and then kind of got the position open and during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, speaking French is a really valuable skill.
Yes, yes. Any language,
And
any other language, yeah.
and do you enjoy like the business to business scale? I mean, the business to business selling. Do you enjoy that aspect?
Excuse me. Yeah, I do. I actually do quite enjoy it. It's quite different than business to consumer.
Mhm.
It's a lot less personal. And at the end of the day, I think most people on both sides are really understanding that you're representing a company, not just yourself. So it's the emotions kind of taken out of it a little bit.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I mean that only in a good way, where it's like it's not that I don't we do care about our clients, et cetera, and vice versa. It's more so that it's not so much like, we need to find something for me specifically. We need to find something that's going to be on a broader scale that's going to work for a bunch of people typically. So I do absolutely enjoy it. We've had a lot of long-term clients with us who I've been working with for many years, and I mean, having that relationship with your vendors and your clients really
Mhm.
helps. And then you kind of work with them over time. And though it's not, I was saying in the beginning, not personal, you do develop that kind of relationship with them,
Relationship. Mhm.
but the emotions out of it a little bit. So it's kind of a nice balance, I find.
That's great. So back to the questions. What does the day-to-day schedule typically looks like for you with dealing with business to business customers?
Yeah, it really varies.
Mhm.
So every day is effectively something different, which is another aspect that I like about it. You're never doing kind of the same thing twice. You might have like similar instances happening, but um, generally there's kind of two main facets that we deal with. So we deal both with incoming and outgoing sales.
Mhm.
So we're not a separated sales division, so we do both. But past that, like I'm really allowed and really kind of structure my day as I see fit. So for example, if I'm really feeling inclined to reach out to a particular client that I've been maybe chasing after for a little bit or something like that, well, I'm going to prioritize that. Every day you do have to be quite organized because of the amount of let's call it freedom, if you will, where it's like you have to really prioritize what you want to focus on, what you think the right leads are going to be, and then what you think is actually going to translate into a sale. You want to
Mhm.
keep your contacts warm, you want to keep your clients warm, you want to kind of structure your day accordingly. So typically I give you kind of like a general breakdown. In the morning, what I'm going to do is kind of make my plan of like who I'm going to reach out to during the day, what tasks I need to accomplish, and then just kind of structure it from there and make a bit of a checklist, but also be realistic that there's only so much time in the day and some things do have to get pushed back. Um, but trying to stay on top of the priority is definitely key.
So you would say you have a lot of freedom, but that also comes with like a lot of personal responsibility and personal management.
Highly so, yeah. You do have to be quite organized. I mean, at the end of the day, like whatever company you're working for, whatever brand you're working for, whatever it is, you got to be bringing in money to it. So you really want to be prioritizing what's going to translate the best, typically the fastest to a sale. But then also you need to have that long-term perspective of being, okay, well, although this may not translate right now, I need to keep this client warm for future. Maybe they're like an end of year purchaser, maybe they're like a holiday time purchaser, etc. So knowing a bit of pattern, and that you only get over time, but understanding the client's patterns, etc., like that's going to help set your priorities through the days and through your year as well.
So basically, like to say you basically control your day by using like smart methods, basically like where you specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So that's how you basically like plan your day.
Yeah, definitely. First thing in the morning, setting priority. So set priority for the day, and then also like let's say it's a Monday or something, set priority for the week. Is really important. And so it's you're trying to balance again both what's going to translate to immediate sale and what's going to translate to something longer term, because you got to set yourself up for success moving forward. But during a busy time, it's kind of like it's a feast or famine industry. So you're going to have busy purchasing seasons, you're going to have really dead purchasing seasons. And so you need to kind of translate those busy times to create that sustainability through your quieter times. So you're always trying to keep that sort of in line and disperse your clients' purchasing through that time.
Perfect. And what prospecting methods do you find most effective when identifying new clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there these days. It's not just phone calls and emails, like it was before. That said, what's the best is probably still phone calls. Once you can have a direct connection with someone and actually get them on the phone, or actually have a name associated with who's gonna be potentially purchasing, is going to be probably the most consistent conversion option. That said, you really do need to understand what it is that your clients are going to be looking for, or want or need. So having, again, that really strong, you need both sides. You need the really strong basis on your products that you're offering or services that you're offering. In our case, it's predominantly products. So again, from previous experiences, with a retail background of selling the same products, but to a business consumer, that helps a lot. And so having that kind of background built already, knowing the products, et cetera, what we're offering, and then translating it to the other side of like, you need to know what it is that's going to work for your clients. And then just simply matching the two together is kind of the key there. So you got to have a bit of background of both. And in terms of prospecting, what you want to really understand is like, if you have this product offering here, you want to look for those clients who are going to be, fitting sort of the puzzle piece over here. Because you can spend a lot of time reaching out to, company ABC, whatever. But at the end of the day, if that's not really going to be aligning with their kind of general vision of their business, of their clients, of their maybe staff members, for example, who are buying a Christmas gift, then it's not, you might be spending a lot of time chasing after that, but in reality, it may not necessarily convert. So I think you got to start with one or the other, and then match the other one to it, if that makes sense.
It does.
Our next few questions were about cold calling. You kind of answered them in that last one, but did you have any other details on how you approach cold calling and emailing when it's still a potential client? Like you did mention the needs, like trying to match their needs with what you're offering, which is a lot of what we cover in class right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, cold calling can be awkward. It can be, you're effectively reaching out to someone who you may not have met before. I think generally the highest conversion rate that we see on that is when you already have, again, background on that client. So let me give you an example. If I'm going to reach out, let's call it to, let's say a fire department, for example. Let's say a fire department. Before I reach out to that fire department, I want to understand a little bit about the area. So who's the people that they're servicing, what their needs are a little bit. Maybe it's duffel bags. Maybe they have a lot of gear that I know that they already need to kind of tote around. Maybe it's a little bit more of what's an immediate need. Maybe it's carabiners or something like that, where I'm like, okay, well, they do a lot of high angle rescue or something like that. But the point I'm trying to drive across is you want to do that kind of research beforehand as much as you can. Try and even have, let's say you have a buyer that you want to reach out to. Before you talk to that buyer, see if you can even reach out to maybe a staff member at the front desk or something like that. Just develop a little bit of conversation, dig a little bit more before just immediately reaching out to someone, being like, hi, like, I want to sell you this product, blah, blah, blah. And that can work, but you'll have usually a bit of better success if you're reaching out to someone with already a bit of background of what they need, sort of who they are and what kind of aligns with their values. So try and do research a little bit before that. And then it's also okay, I think, in these times to go with like an email first or something like that, just kind of suss it out and then go for a call. So you can kind of play it around a little bit, but try and understand really, first off, you got to know your product really well, but then also know what they're looking for potentially.
Needs of the customer, basically.
Yeah.
So to stay on the question of still prospecting, in your own words, what criteria do you use to qualify a potential lead?
Yeah, it can be a lot of different options there. What I would say is, again, it's going to be mostly due to what their kind of appetite is, if you will. So, I mean, a potential lead, there's kind of different stages to it. So a preliminary, kind of like a warm lead, if you will, that would be someone I'd be interested in just kind of reaching out to in terms of, okay, maybe like we have like two company values that sort of align. So for example, in our case, we're big on sustainability and what have you. Maybe there's a company that's also big on sustainability. And maybe I don't know anyone there or anything like that, but can start to reach out to it. And then if we're going into more of like a hotter lead, that would be more the case where I know that they're not just aligning on a company level, but they're actually aligning on a product level or somewhere where they're going to be a little bit more like, okay, I know that they're potentially looking to purchase water bottles or something like that, something that we do sell. And that's going to really going to be where I'm going to, okay, now I need to prioritize that and really act on that quickly.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maazin. You want to continue?
Yes, I just wanted a little bit of clarification. When you say warmer and hotter leads, is that like a little likely, and then a hotter would be much more likely to finish a sale with you?
Yeah. Generally, so we're looking at if you think about sales like this, and I mean this is a little bit kind of black and white version of it, but it's time to conversion rate. So how much time and effort are you going to put in to whatever it is that you're working on that's going to translate into a sale, it's going to convert into a sale. And again, that's a very black and white version of it, and it's a little bit more nuanced. But at the end of the day, like you do have to balance and prioritize. Okay, how much effort do I need to put in right now, especially maybe during a busy season, for example, that I can prioritize into that's going to convert into something a little bit sooner. And then to the flip side, like before when I was kind of explaining that, where it's sometimes you have to just be like, okay, how much time and effort do I need to put in now to convert to something later. So to answer your question, like in terms of warm or hot, warm, that's going to be something we're going to consider. That's maybe building a relationship, maybe something we convert later, and then hot is going to be something that pretty quickly.
Perfect.
And then our next question was, how do you uncover a client's true business needs? And then we are using the SPIN framework, the situation, problem, implication, and then need payoff.
Yeah, I gotcha. the short answer is just conversation. You gotta talk to them, and you gotta do your research. So again, today we have a lot of tools available, which is great. You can find people's needs not just by conversation. Now you can also, you don't have to be so direct. You can also be like, okay, look on the company's website. Is there a project that they're working on? Is there what's their kind of client base that they work with? What sort of aligns with them? And then also think of like, okay, well, for let's use the example of like a holiday gift. What kind of people do you think work there? Are they people who go to the gym? Are they people who go maybe for a hike on the weekend? Are they, think about that kind of idea. So you want to be building a bit of portfolio in your mind of being like, okay, who is this client? And then once you have that, going to chat with them and really dissecting and being like, okay, let's focus on specifics of how can we really find exactly what's going to be your needs. You kind of build a whole picture together. It takes time, but the more time that you spend with that client over the years, the more and more you're going to have in your mind, know what to do with that and what's going to work for them. So, for example, you know, come 4 years with working with a client, you might not even need to ask them, hey, what do you need during the holidays? You might just go, how about a fleece vest order or something like that, because you already know that that's kind of what's going to align with them.
And then would you
And
say those, oh, sorry to interrupt you, Culture.
no
I
problem.
just want to, before we move to the next question, I just wanted to ask, so would you say those, like that portfolio and that personality that you build in your mind, and then when you like, give them little, when you make small assumptions, it makes them feel more seen and that helps the sale overall?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like a friendship, right? If you go out for coffee with a friend and you notice that they don't take sugar in their coffee the first time, and you go out for coffee the second time and you put sugar in their coffee, you kind of get the idea that you may not have been paying attention the first time, but like the just kind of knowing a little bit here and there, those small little nuance things, you can kind of again build that little bit of portfolio and understand. And then again, it just makes everyone feel a lot more comfortable. And it also saves you time and effort, because imagine each time having to kind of rebuild that process every time you meet with the same client. It'd be exhausting, but having that kind of existing relationship, existing understanding of each other, and you know, on our end, what our offering is, and then our clients and what their needs are, and then it just kind of saves time on both ends. And again, going back to that business versus business to consumer end, removing, like, how to put it, where it's, you're removing the emotion side, but you're still keeping that relationship side together, and it just makes everything move a lot smoother.
Perfect. And touching bases back on the spin question, do you utilize the spin analysis basically when you're dealing with like business to business sales?
I mean, I wouldn't say like we're going like boom, 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 boom kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
but like in a roundabout way, yes. Like all the points do absolutely need to be hit, but it kind of happens a little bit more organically, I would say. Like, and you know, things take time, and you may not discover something you know, about that client, but you can still make it work up front. But maybe you learn something a little bit more of them like a year later, even. Like it's you want to also give a little bit of time and let things develop over a bit, or again, organically. But I mean, sure, if you can get all that information up front, I mean, amazing. It's just the reality is sometimes that's not really realistic just on the time frame. You know, a lot of clients are coming to us with a last minute purchase, and they're like, well, what do you mean you can't get it all in the next couple weeks, kind of thing? And it's like, these things take time to develop, you know.
Thank you. And back to the questionnaire. How do you tailor your sales pitch for different client types?
Yeah, so good question. Going back to what I was saying earlier, if you really need to already have a bit of information, so it goes back to kind of building that portfolio in your mind, where do as much research as you can beforehand. And when's beforehand? Really, as soon as you can. Really, like as soon as you can start doing any form of research. So I always kind of start like this, where it's think of the least intrusive method possible, and then just continually build. So for example, what's a really low intrusive method? Well, you can look on their website, you can look at their social media, you can look at, something where someone's not even going to notice that you're there effectively. Then you get to a little bit more, personalized. So then you can start going with emails, then you can start going with phone calls. And then when you're at the point of like an actual sales pitch, you need to have that portfolio already built. And if not, you're really just coming in to an audience that may align with your products that you're trying to bring them or may not. And you're kind of rolling the dice. You're putting a lot of investment of time and effort into it without knowing that may convert. Whereas typically what we try and do, or what I try and do, is if I'm going into a pitch, at that point, I have a pretty good idea that this is already going to work, and is already going to convert. So how do you tailor it? You want to kind of, again, have that portfolio built. You really want to address their needs, their company culture, and their general values up front. And I would say almost culture, needs, and then sort of what your actual product is that you can kind of work into there in sort of that order. So you need to blend in a little bit, but then also like upfront, and then also kind of go like, okay, well, now that we've blended in, here's where your needs seem to be, and here's what we can fill that with.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And how do you maintain relationship once the sales is completed, or once you're done, like initially grabbing that customer, completing that sale? How do you go to maintain your relationship, or do you maintain your relationship with them, or you just like move on and never think about them or never speak to them again?
No, so business to business, I would argue, is predominantly relationship based. We have the most of our clientele, most of my clients. Again, we've been working with for a few years. We're always bringing on new clients, but even then, we're continuously working with them. Business to consumer, I would argue, sometimes it's a little bit more like touch and go. Like they're there for their time, for when they need your product, but then after that it's not always so much connection, maybe a little bit here and there during the holidays, something like that. Business to business, we're trying to keep things warm. We're trying to maintain purchasing patterns. We're trying to maintain, again, remember we're talking about, there you have your busy times, you have your quiet times. You're trying to fill those quiet times. You're trying to kind of bell curve that off a little bit. So in order to do that, a lot of times you are consistently reaching out, whether it's via email, whether it's via phone call, whether it's via, what have you, maybe liking a post on their social media. It can be something that simple, but it's a matter of just continuously being in the presence of a purchaser's mind, because ultimately these purchasers are still people. They're representing a company. They're representing a company's needs to buy something for that company to fit the company's needs, but they're still people. And if you're not in their mind when they're at time of purchasing, then you're not really going to exist. So you really need to kind of maintain that, hey, how are you? How's your weekend, or what have you? It can be really something that simple. At the end of the day, it is a person-to-person business. It feels larger sometimes because you're representing a brand, they're representing something else, but you still have to have that connection between the two of you that's going to make them say, oh yeah, I need to buy water bottles. Why are they going to come to us as opposed to someone else? Because I'm the first one in their mind. And it really, again, could be something as simple as the fact that I like their Facebook post or something. But
Yes.
yeah.
And to speak on, you said like you have cold seasons, you have hot seasons. Just tell me, like, what do you think is like your on season? What do you think is like your off season? Which season do you think like, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money? And what season do you think like I'm going to make a limited amount of money? I have to push harder.
Yeah, it's really going to be industry dependent, I would say.
Hmm.
So it really depends on who you're selling to. You need to know your client's purchasing patterns. And so when I'm talking about that is, let me give you an example. If I'm selling to a school board, in the summertime, they're probably not going to be making any orders because they're not there. But come September, all the kids are back, right?
Mhm.
That's a purchasing pattern. Or maybe come end of year, so let's call it end of fiscal March. A lot of school boards are going to be like, uh-oh, we have to spend this budget, or we're not going to get it for next year because they've let it kind of dwindle on until then. That's a purchasing pattern. Maybe it's a company that predominantly does office gifts for the holidays again. Come October, November, I'm going to start reaching out. That's when I'm going to start going to be like, hey, like, let's get you some office gifts, what have you. Maybe it's a summer camp. Are they going to be purchasing in the fall? Probably not, but in the spring, yeah. So you gotta understand where those kind of each lie. And then what I find helps is you want to almost map it out. So graph it, basically be like, okay, this is going to be around this time. This industry is hot around this time. And then try and set your clock back a little bit. So, for example, a summer camp, be like, okay, I know that they need their goods, obviously, for the summer, being a summer camp. Come early spring, maybe late winter, maybe that's a good time to start reaching out, try and start to thinking, start to build their product needs over the spring. So come time when they're finally ready to make a total purchase, you've already built up a larger product list than maybe they were already thinking about. See if you can fill other voids in there. So you're always trying to kind of dissect of where those kind of lie in terms of patterns. But again, you got to understand what they need, their purchasing patterns, and see if you can move that around to fit your needs too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And then our next question was, how do you apply the feature advantages benefits in your presentations? And then assuming you're doing a lot of preparation before this, so this is when you're going into the pitch confidently.
Yeah, so good question. Generally speaking, most people, I would argue that I talk to in a way, and this is definitely up for debate, it's opinion, not fact, are interested in benefits. Let me give you an example. I could tell you that this shirt is blue and white, but if I'm trying to sell you a blue shirt, I'm going to tell you it's the bluest blue. And it's about just kind of dissecting a bit of psychology there, where generally speaking, most people understand what a benefit is. They want to understand why is it better than the other thing. And this is leaning a little bit more business to business than business to consumer, because most of the time our clients already have a general idea of what they want, what their need is. But we just need to bring ourselves forward in saying that it's the best option, maybe product-wise, but maybe offering-wise, if maybe we offer a better service with it, or maybe we offer anything to kind of come out a little bit on top, maybe a better shipping option or something like that.
Mhm.
So again, we're usually leaning in a little bit more into what's a benefit as opposed to what's a feature. You're sorry, just one second to
That's fine.
call. Generally speaking, when you're kind of earlier on in the stages of building your product offering, that's where I would say you want to look into what's the features. So you want to be looking into, what's going to be a feature that is going to sell itself to you, a product that's going to sell itself to a certain degree, and you want to believe in your products that you're offering. You want to understand them, and if not, it's going to be really, really difficult to actually sell them. You really do have to kind of understand them. Like for me, like I'm a big outdoorsy person, a climbing guide. Like I need to have that kind of basis of the product already, and actually believe in it, actually use it. Otherwise, you're just kind of bringing something forward that on a personal level you may not be actually aligning with, and that's going to come across when you come to a pitch or something like that. Whereas if you already have, again, like in my case, I have that long retail background, understanding the product, knowing the vendors, etc. I already have that built up, and that's important, because then when I'm coming time to pitch, I can easily just be like, well, this is a better one, or this is a better option, and I've used it, and I know it because I've used other options. I've done other options. We helped design this, for example, or something like that. So generally speaking, business to business, to answer your question though, usually looking benefits, so much more so than features. The features should already be built in your product selection time, so a little earlier earlier on than the pitch side. But when it comes time to the pitch, they already kind of know generally what they're looking for, but we need to know how to bring ours forward over someone else's.
To like tell them you're the best version or the best fit for them.
Best fit for them, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. So, what's your company's unique value proposition and how do you convey it over effectively?
Generally for the company.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, generally for MEC, we're kind of positioned in the market where we have some key values that do resonate well with a lot of other companies. Sustainability is huge. So we're very much so into that. We're very much so into also we sell a lot of Blue Sign approved products. We sell a lot of we're very, very strict on our labor policies in terms of manufacturing labor policies, etc. So those are good things. Also, we're a Canadian company. We're completely Canadian owned again at this time. So, that also aligns right now, especially with all the what's going on, the tariff situation and everything. So, I mean, that doesn't hurt. And then also positioning ourselves across the country. We do have visibility with our stores across the country, which certainly helps. I mean, if you're only in one province, for example, you're going to be visible in that province, but you may not be known, 2-3 provinces over. So having that kind of position really, really helps as well. But in terms of general strategy and how we align with other companies, I would say mostly is we're going to be, again, going to sustainability, we're trying to, always push in terms of being a top employer or something like that. So all those things kind of help align yourself with other companies, but yeah.
Thank you. You can go, Maza.
Yes, okay. And I just wanted, it is really enlightening also just before I moved on to hear about MEC, like their values like that, because I know that they have a really positive reputation, like coast to coast Canada, between all the outdoorsy types. And I guess that I never thought about it, but that would translate well to a lot of organizations who want to show that they also share those values by working with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anything, again, remember we're talking about how do you position yourself? You was talking about even liking a Facebook post or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's building that portfolio for yourself too, right? So anytime that we're in the news, for example, as being a sustainable company, or we were in the news the other day for being one of BC's top employers, or anything like that, it's going to help build that profile in the purchaser's mind because they're doing the same thing on their side as what I'm doing, right? Just vice versa. And then that helps bring it to the forefront of thought as well, right? So it's you have to work with other teams. Like we're a little bit separate doing our business to business end, but it's not to say that we don't have to work with marketing. We have to work with with our local stores too, to ensure that we're engaging community events and such. We're trying to I'll give you an example. We do a lot of work with scout groups, for example. We might sell a lot of product to scout groups, but at the same token, we're also going to tell the scouts, hey, you know what? Why don't you guys come into the store for one night, and we'll all give you a little bit of discount or whatever. Just kind of bring them and get them talking, or we might work with charity. We're working with a project right now in Alberta who is responsible for rebolting the climbing routes. So we're trying to get them a deal for the hardware that they need. So you have to kind of keep bringing that forward, and at the end of the day, that is visible to other purchasers, both to the ones that you're the charities that you're working with, but also others who might chat with them or whatnot. So you're always trying to bring that to inadvertently bring it forward in the purchaser's mind, and have that kind of portfolio built on MEC in general, and then on the corporate group sales team after that.
Thank you. And then our next question listed here is, what are common objections you face and how do you address them? And we just covered objection handling recently, so this is fresh in both our minds.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, did you want to go into a particular topic that was on your mind? We can.
Oh no, just letting you know that
Okay.
yeah, we just yesterday we started covering how to handle objections, just the different types of objections and the different types of handling techniques. So I just wanted to hear how someone with your experience, like what you
Yeah,
recommend and
just
what's
from
worked
your
for
point
you.
of view.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, objections, right? There's two points of objection or conflict that you're typically going to face. There's going to be one internally, so one from our team slash myself to the rest of MEC, the company, and then there's going to be one from myself outgoing to the client, and you're the middle person. You need to balance both. On one end, you're going to have a client saying, I want it fast, cheap, and good, and good product, fast and cheap, and typically you can pick two of those. You can't pick three. um, and to the flip side, so you're trying to balance that, and then on this flip side, I'll give you an example, really common in business to business. You have a new client who's looking to purchase with you, and for example, either you need to produce all this product and they're going to pay later, maybe they're paying that 30 or something like that, and so you got to kind of make room for that in the budget, right? Or you're going with the prospect of like, okay, I want to special order all these goods from supplier, blah blah blah, whatever, and that's also going to need to take room in the budget. I mean, sure, it might be a sale that's coming through, but in that interim period, you got to kind of justify that. So you're always trying to balance both sides, and still, I mean, obviously, it has to be a profitable position for the company. And then you're trying to maintain the client's happiness so that they keep coming back to you. So, in terms of objections, is when you're told, generally in business to business, in my experience, like you might be told no on either end, but it's never really no. You can always kind of figure out some sort of balance point, and that's the kind of the beauty of it, where that emotional aspect is a bit removed, compared to business to consumer, where you can almost always find a way that's going to be beneficial to your business as well as get your product to the client as they need. Um, so how do you handle it? I mean, you have to do give and take. It's really the only way. I think you got to produce something. It may not be specifically what they're asking for, but you have to offer something, either on your internal end or outgoing, to kind of balance it off. It's like the old saying where it's like if two people are leaving a deal a bit unhappy, then it's a good deal. Where it's, if you want to, it should never be completely like one-sided or the other. I mean, at the end of the day, something's got to give. Um, but coming across either to the client or internally with a bit of offering on either end, is definitely going to help.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. And what signals you, this question is gonna sound a bit funny, but
It's
what
okay.
signals you to tell you that a client is ready to buy? Or when you get like, how do you know when a client is ready to buy?
Yeah, I mean, there's two aspects in business to business. There's your purchasing end, and then their purchasing end and their financial end, so to speak. So your buyer might be ready, but their finance team may not be ready. So in terms of convincing a buyer, I mean, I would say that's it depends, but sometimes the easy point, in the sense of, again, you've already built their portfolio. You've pitched to them a product that you know is like, going into that, you should almost already know that that is the right product for that, and believe that, and not just kind of be faking it, because you should have that background on the product. You already know that, et cetera. Like, you've used it, et cetera, whatever it may be. So convincing the client and having them ready to go, so to speak, is sometimes the easier piece. Um, Convincing their board, their finance team, whatever, that's sometimes the harder piece. And so they need, on both their side and your side, to justify in their budget and their planning and whatever it may be, that this is the most logical decision. Again, a nice thing about business to business, the emotional end's a little bit out of it, where it's just at that point you really are convincing everyone present there that this is not just the best product, it's the best decision for the company to move forward with. And I'm speaking perspective of the buyer. Um, And how do you do that? Well, first, exactly like you're saying, you have to get the buyer, the purchaser, on your side. So they have to be convinced that that's absolutely the right way to go. So you're convinced, they're convinced. And now it's a matter of coming up with, okay, when does it actually convert to sale? What does it look like? It has to be the right price, obviously, for finance. It has to be their right price. But the right price doesn't mean the cheapest price. The right price means what's going to give them the best value out of it and what's going to be justifiably the best purchase for them. And what's the best value? Well, it might be maybe a brand that they want specifically. Maybe it's a color they want specifically. Maybe it's something that's going to last a little longer than something else. There's a large myriad of things that can go there, or maybe it's a relationship that we want to do with them later on, and they like that, or personalization of the product, whatever it is. But getting the buyer on your side, I think, is like you should already have that large basis of your product. So they're generally going to be like, okay, I'm ready to go forward with that. But now you need to make it make sense on paper of what's going to be the best position value for that product for the company.
And I think that's a good segue into our next question is, which closing techniques do you find most effective?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It really does depend, because that's where it's getting a little bit more personal, in the sense of you need that personalized portfolio on not just your client, but on their company, their business as well. And how do you close that? How do you turn that? Okay, now everyone's on board, like, looks great, but how do we actually convert this now? You really need to kind of change the conversation a little bit. So now you have to change it to be a little bit more like, great, now you almost want to talk in past tense a little bit. So in terms of, you can start to say like, okay, after, let's say we're talking about Fleece Fest, for example, just because it was product that I was selling yesterday, but it was like, after we get you these fleece vests, great. Like, what about, you can kind of change the conversation a little bit more to be how, like, it's a bit hard to describe, where it's like, let's talk about what it'll look like on your employees. Let's talk about like almost after the fact stuff, if you will, where you've done your convincing, you've convinced they're fine, everything is going through. But to actually close it, you need to kind of already set the wheels in motion. Whereas I think if you go at it with the mentality of like, okay, let's get you this, let's do this, let's continue, like, it'll just kind of go on forever. But if you just kind of change your mentality to be like, okay, this has already happened, then things will just kind of start to move. Like, or you can start to be like, great, let's get the payment in. As soon as we get it in, product's going to start moving, or something like, or a deposit, or what have you. Or you can kind of change the subject a little bit. Not that's like, it's about changing your mentality off of convincing now to this is already happening, if that makes sense.
To like closing,
So,
like wrapping it up.
Wrapping
yeah.
it up, but almost speak past tense. So it's like it's already happening.
Oh, it was already
Yeah.
happened. So, what personal qualities, in your opinion, again, makes a successful salesperson?
Honesty. You absolutely have to be honest. I mean, especially business to business. I think the days of, you know, big show and tell and maybe not be able to deliver on it, or what have you, or issues with products or stuff like those days are gone. Like, you really have to be, people just want to know what they're getting into. If I'll give you an example of like selling a used car back in the day, maybe it was like, oh, everything looks fine, here's the tail light warranty, as soon as you drive off it falls apart. Now it's more like, just tell people what's wrong with it. Just tell people, like, just be completely open and honest. And again, your product offering, it really needs to be solid, because you need, like, what I'm trying to explain is like, it's not that you should force yourself to believe in a product. It's more so that it should genuinely resonate with you, and or a service, or whatever it is. Um, but it should genuinely resonate with you. And if you don't align and actually believe in whatever it is you're selling, it, it will come across like it will come across as being fake. And so it's really important that you do that research if you're going to align yourself on a personal level with whatever company it is or with whatever it is. And if you don't believe in it, that can be dangerous. So honesty, super important, and you genuinely need to believe in it or believe in whatever service or whatever it is that it is. And then in terms of other personal qualities, I mean, it's you have to be a bit authentic to yourself. I think if you're, I've worked with a lot of different salespeople, some very outgoing, some very actually introverted, some very, a little bit quieter. And the beauty of business to business is that's okay. Like you don't have to fake it. You just need to tailor your pitch, your market to who you are, and then again that goes back to honesty. It's like you will come across as genuine because you are being genuine. But if you try and really kind of force it, if someone who's introverted, for example, is really trying to push and be like, I'm going to cold call everyone today or something, it's again that's going to come across. People are going to know that it's not going to translate well to a sale. It's not going to convert. But if you're coming across as genuinely who you are and like, look, I believe in this. I'm prospecting clients though who are aligning with myself and the company. So kind of going back to what we were talking about before of like, if you're, to put it all together, if you're a very extroverted person and you have a product that you might believe in or is great, but if you're coming across to a company that's, maybe their people, their views, their purchasers are like really quiet, maybe like more chill, like maybe a library, that may not resonate well. So it's also about finding your set of clients, your, I'm not crazy about the term, but sometimes you might hear like you need to find your tribe. But it's basically the concept of like you need to find your people that are going to work well with you. It's not to say that you can't go outside that and what have you, but your consistent client base, you're going to notice are people that are going to be more consistent with your selling tactics, your personality, your offering, etc.
Perfect. So basically, what you're trying to say is that they basically need to know, we basically need to know our brand and we need to know like what fits our brand as a salesperson. That's basically what you're trying to elaborate on. And
Yeah.
with knowing the product and the company and all of that.
Yeah, you got to pile it all together and you got to know yourself too. You got to know like, and the purchasers that you're reaching out to, like it's going to just calling it what it is, like it's generally going to be easier if they're more similar resonating to the kind of vibe that you're putting out, to the sales that you're putting out. It again, not to say that you can't go to other buyers, other things, and by all means do. It's just you'll typically notice that consistent client base is going to stick with you because of that overall similarity. It's just, again, just like a friendship. You got to have something, generally speaking, you got to have something in common that's going to pull you both back together, and help you build a long-term relationship on it.
So you're a little more charismatic in my opinion. Do you go looking for like people who are like more charismatic? Because me, I'm more of like a bubbly and a upfront person when I'm not around a business front. When I'm a business front, I'm more like, you understand, I'm in that business mindset, I'm more determined. So not going on me back on you. So you basically look for like businesses that fit your brand, be more charismatic, that be more up to beat like you, something like you.
Inadvertently so sometimes, yes. I mean, and it's really just a matter of, I would say that most of the clients that I've had long term, um, maybe it's again having that little bit of something in common. For example, I'm a climbing guide. I've had clients who also happen to be climbing guides. Or for example, I talk with my hands a lot, maybe, but like you're saying, a little bit more charismatic. But like it does sometimes come across as you can kind of initially just kind of resonate with people on that front. But to the same token, where might I struggle or might have to kind of change my speech a little bit, change my pitch a little bit, is if I'm speaking with, for example, we did business with an archive. Very studious, quiet people, again, you're doing a business to business deal, but there's still people on the other end. And so you kind of have to change your presentation a little bit, and because you want to resonate and align with the kind of people there, the culture, the what have you, of whoever's doing the purchasing at the end of the day.
You want to continue,
Thank you.
Maazin?
Yes, my
So,
pleasure.
mhm.
And so how do you stay motivated during rejection or during your slower months? Like if you were primarily, like most of your clients were schools 1 year, so you notice that you have a big slow period in the summer coming up,
Yeah,
for example. Yeah.
you got to turn it on like a switch. You gotta literally. I am very much so like on or off. That's it. Like there's no, and I mean this is this is the way that works for me. But I think this is totally just opinion, not what works for everyone. You know what I mean? I think it's really important that you have to be, again, authentic and true to yourself of what works for you personally. For me, if someone says no to a deal, no harm, no foul. Not an issue. Completely understand. Even if I've put like months into work with it, not a problem at all. It happens all the time. We're gonna get the next one. No problem. It's literally just switch it on, switch it off. It doesn't keep me up, doesn't bother me at all. That's great. For a lot of people, that's not true. And to the same token, I know I've worked with a lot of people who are, it's like, oh, it really kind of eats away at them, or they're like, but I've put so much work into it, and I mean, fair to them, they might use that as motivation, and go for something else from there, and great, like, you know what I mean, totally. Like, I think that there's not really a right or wrong answer of how you process it. I just know that for me personally, what works for myself is just kind of on or off. And I don't know if that's really the best answer. Psychologically, it's just kind of what works for me.
Um, so we're about 8 minutes away from 11 o'clock. We just have a few more questions,
That's fine.
Leah. I just want to know if you have the available time to continue the questionnaire, because I do know that you're also a business person and you might not have the time, but we have just a few questions, Flav. No
Yeah, no
less than
worries.
that. That's good?
Yeah, no worries.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So our next question would be, how has technology change how you sell? Because now we're in a life where like AI is controlling everything. Everything is being run by basically a computer. How does that change the way you sell? Or how do you use that as like a tool in your toolbox and not just like something that, yeah, just like using it as a tool in your toolbox?
Embrace it is my advice. It's just there's so many tools out there that you can use. I work 100% remotely now, which I love. So, and it's largely thanks to, modern technology, etc. But my general advice is embrace it. Always stay at the forefront of learning, of trying new things, because the chances are, if you're finding out about something, your clients know about it already. And if that's just kind of the way it is, so you're trying to kind of keep up, not necessarily just with your clients, but with everyone. I mean, while you're trying to sell something, someone else is trying to sell them something too. And so if you're not really taking advantage of all the tools out there, or at least trying to, then it might set you back a little bit. For example, I absolutely use technology every day. I mean, in terms of anything to expedite any sort of process I'm going to be looking at. Just the other day, I was having an issue naming files or something. It was taking a long time, so I wrote a code to make it automatically do that in a folder. And like but you gotta embrace it. It is absolutely a tool to use. You think about it, if you were in a trade, if you were a plumber, for example, and for the longest time you've been using a pipe wrench, and then magically someday this new tool comes out that is like, maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. But I don't think you're doing yourself justice if you don't try it. And it's not that you have to kind of stick with it or, switch your whole philosophy or whatever, but at least be aware of it, at least try it, at least try something new, but always, and it's also going to keep it new for you. It's going to keep things exciting. There's going to be tons of new tools out for the two of you, even in the next 5 years, in the next 2 years. Like it's so my opinion is just try it all. Some things are going to work, some things are not, and some things are going to work for you, and some things are not. But just always be willing to try it. Always be willing to experiment, do something new. So, yeah, I mean, it really, really can be beneficial. I mean, to the same token, you might be like, okay, but at what point does AI just kind of replace our jobs and what have you? I mean, it may, but the reality is you want to be at the position where
It
you're the
doesn't.
one using it. Well, I would say even if you're the one kind of being like, okay, but I already have this huge basis of it. So then you can be the one kind of using it as a tool to, maybe your job doesn't look specifically like this, but maybe it looks something a little different like this, and you're able to kind of manipulate it to do sales like that. So I mean, again, just always be open. But yeah.
You don't
So
think
you don't
like,
feel,
oh, sorry,
oh,
Master.
sorry. So like
Um,
just don't feel the need to completely retool your toolbox every time a new product comes out, but also um feel like just keep looking at everything and keep like assessing and trying out new tools and technologies as they come, because you never know what works best for you. And you never know what
100%.
will be more relevant as time goes on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like at the end of the day, there's new stuff every day. There's always going to be new stuff. I mean, it's but I would, in my opinion, again, not fact opinion, is just try it. At least give it a shot, and then if it doesn't work for you, no harm, no foul. If that's not going to help you in your career, no problem.
mhm.
But I think at this stage in the game of not giving it a shot, you're not doing yourself justice. You're not giving yourself the best shot at success.
That's true.
Mm.
You don't think like the overuse of AI technology when it comes to sales, it kind of demands the authenticity of the selling, because I feel like you say, you can use it as a tool, or you can potentially just use AI to do everything for you.
Well,
So,
think of
mhm,
the conversion rate is what it always boils down to, right? So let
mhm,
me put it to you this way. I can send out 10,000 emails right now using an AI tool,
mhm,
and I'd probably get maybe maybe one small sale out of it, maybe a reply in reality.
wow.
But if I take the time and do a legitimate outreach and really, because remember, on the end, at least for now, on the other end of the spectrum is the purchaser, who is a person. At the end of the day, it's still people making these financial decisions, who making these
Mhm,
purchasing decisions. If I take the time, the same amount of time, and were to go about it that way, I'd probably still have a better success conversion rate going about it that way, as opposed to just blasting emails out, or like blasting automated phone calls out or something like that. So again, like you can kind of sculpt it a little bit, of how you want to use the tool. For example, just because going back to the plumber, if just because you have this new fancy pipe wrench or whatever, it doesn't mean that you have to use it on every pipe. It doesn't mean that you have to, kind of tailor your entire experience now to just be blasted AI outreach, etc. You can do both, and you can also use it in situations that warrant. So, for example, maybe it's sending out 100 different invoices or something like that. That's something where it could be like, well, that's not necessarily personal. I just need to get this product, to the product being the invoice, to their AD team, for example. That's healthy use of a tool. But spamming all of my contacts of
mhm.
just being like, come by with me, probably not a great tool use of the tool. So you want to, just like any other tool, you got to think of when it's appropriate, to use, how to use it, but also do remember that at the other end of this is still a human being at least for now, who's going to be reviewing and deciding, and you still need to make that connection.
Thank you so
And then,
much.
and then this is one's really relevant for us. What advice would you give to students entering B2B sales or marketing?
I would say that first off is align yourself with companies, products, people that align with your values. They may not be the same kind of, you know, maybe charismatic or non-charismatic person that you are, but what I more so mean is in your core values. Make sure that you're being with the people that makes sense to you on a personal level, and that if you are going to be representing a company or working for a company, at the end of the day, like bring it all back down to a really simple scale of you're a human being putting your time into something. And if you're going to be putting a lot of time and effort into something, make sure that it's something that you believe in, or at very least gives you what you need as a human being out of it. So always assess what you're looking at, what you're about to sign up for, what you're about to do. And that's not just applying for positions, but also once you're in a position on your day to day, make sure that you're like, okay, always taking that kind of personal check in of, is this where I want to be? Is this what I'm representing? Is this where, like, does this make sense for me? And if you do that, you'll always be in a position where you know your product, you know your people, you believe in it, and you're going to save yourself so much time and effort of having to almost convince yourself before you convince a purchaser, because you're already on board. And then when it comes time to speaking to a purchaser, whether it's, you know, B2B, whether it's marketing, whatever it is, whoever you're pitching to, you already have that background. You already have your people around. You already have your values aligned. It's going to save you a lot of time and effort as opposed to trying to kind of come up with that on the spot.
And how do you measure your performance beyond just revenue goals?
Yeah, so I mean, revenue goals, I actually, I don't think is a great way of measuring success. I generally kind of try and measure a team success in, I mean, obviously it's important. There's some base, like, you know, baselines that you have to hit, et cetera. Okay. But like aside from that, what I mean in terms of actual team growth is how are we setting ourselves up for success for our quiet periods? So generally speaking, I like to look at, when I'm analyzing the data, is I like to look at what's our worst times, and year over year, what's our worst times, and what have we done year over year to fill those worst times? Because you'll notice that they are going to be consistent, typically speaking, if you have a particular type of product offering over the years. But what are we doing year over year to fill that void? And again, kind of, if you look at a graph, there's going to be high times, low times, et cetera, but to kind of even it out through those periods. And I think that's a little bit more tangible way of measuring success than just numbers, because I mean, you look at revenue goals and I mean, yeah, sure, they could be aligned and adjusted for inflation and whatnot, but there's so much variance here and there that maybe purchasing is really heavy one year, maybe it's not. Like it's not always the best way to look at it. Again, you have to remain profitable. Like it has to still be a good financial position. But in terms of a sales team, like how to adjust a sales team success is try and identify the weak spots, address those directly, and then try and look at growth of the weak spots year over year in percentage. So not necessarily dollar value, but try and understand how, again, because of inflation or what have you, like try and understand percentage of your sale that's actually growing during your weak time and your conversion through your weak times. And yeah, try and pinpoint those, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was an amazing answer.
No worries.
um,
Could you share a story about your most challenging sales call and what you learned from it?
um, trying to think. I mean, that's kind of a tricky question. I would say
Yeah.
like there are challenging sales calls, but I wouldn't I don't consider them challenging. I think they're all just um it's it that emotional aspect again being a bit removed business to business. It's like you might have challenging in the sense of you might need to convince a purchaser to go with you. You might need to um, on the other side, you might need to convince a supplier to go with you or what have you. Um, but I think it's all just kind of part of the job or part of like the career where it's just it's not necessarily challenging, more so that's just kind of life. Like you have to kind of just always be thinking balance. I could try and think of an example on the spot. For example, sometimes a typical kind of challenge that may arise is if we're manufacturing a product, for example, and we're supplying a company with said product, and it's not going to arrive in the time frame that was either initially pitched to them or was initially kind of what they had in mind. And ultimately, in that kind of position, where are you? Well, you're in a position where you're technically no longer delivering on a deliverable, which would be the time frame. You might be getting all the product, but for whatever reason, and the only reason I'm using this because it's really frequent right now, a lot of shipping disruptions, etc. Especially during the pandemic, lots of shipping disruptions where you're going to miss a deliverable. So what do? You have to, again, just like when we're talking about objections or any sort of conflict there, you need to reach out on something else. So although you're going to miss one thing, you got to figure something else out to kind of smooth that over a little bit. So maybe is that a price situation that you can work out? Is that maybe if it's getting embellished or embroidered or what have you, if it's a product like that, maybe that's something that you can turn to do on your side, maybe in-house or something. So you got to kind of work on that aspect. But I'm a little apprehensive to call it like a challenging phone call where it's just like that's just kind of how it goes. You're always going to kind of be in that situation. You just have to work with it, and know that your client's not after you. If they're mad at you, they're not mad at you. They're mad at your company. They're mad at what you're representing, or they're mad at a situation. That's completely understandable, and you can also side with them and just be like, "Yeah, I'm mad at this situation too." Like on behalf of whatever, I'm really sorry, etc. But like at the end of the day, you're going to work to get to a solution, and it usually involves a bit of give and then also a little bit of understanding their frustration, you know. But not challenging. That's just how it goes. Yeah.
It's positive mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah, life is
you
full
gotta
of
maintain
rejection,
that.
so you just gotta take the rejections and go with it, basically.
Exactly. Exactly. It's another curveball, but you run with it and you just go you go from there. But it's not you got to maintain that mindset. It's just like you're saying where it's like you have to maintain that positive mindset to be like, "Ah, okay, so this didn't work. What's the opportunity here? What's the business opportunity here? How can we change this to be positive?" Because even if a customer's calling you yelling on the phone, that's still a business opportunity. They're still talking to you. And you have to maintain that mindset of okay, you're mad about this. Great, I've got something else for you. So,
Hmm.
Hmm.
So I know this is going to sound a bit repetitive. I know basically you said that building like long-term relationship with customers, you do like product differentiation where you like keep the product in the mindsets of your consumer or the business, correct? So which brings me back to this other question. How do you build like long-term trust with your clients?
uh, yeah, I mean, you have to perform. So you have to deliver. You have to. The first few orders that you do with a client is going to be, it's kind of like a first impression, if you will, where you have to kind of really build that mindset in your client's mind of you deliver on time, you deliver what they want, you deliver a great service, you deliver great phone calls, you deliver great shipping options, whatever it is. Maybe it's a service, like, I'm not just talking about my perspective, but just whatever it may be that you're presenting. Those first few orders or services that you're providing, it's really important that you go that extra mile and really touch base with them as soon as it's delivered. Hey, did you get everything? So glad to hear. Whatever that may look like, and however you want to go about that outreach afterwards, by all means. But it is important in that first little bit to build that. And if you do that process a couple orders down the road as opposed to up front, they may already have a bit of preconceived notion on yourself and the business and whatever you're representing, and that may not translate as well as if it was up front. So I do think in the beginning you really got to be a little bit above and beyond, and by all means all throughout the relationship you always need to maintain, but especially in the beginning be really really on.
Perfect. Thank you
It's all
so much.
about just setting those, not just the first impression, but just letting them like learn that they can trust you and that you're reliable, and then like you said, they'll think of you whenever they need something that you can possibly offer.
That's right. Yeah, you're setting an expectation. You're also setting an expectation for yourself. So if you don't follow up on that expectation, that can also be problematic. So you always got to, like, if you are setting that high expectation up front, those key deliverables that you're presenting up front, even like throughout the whole relationship, always try and deliver on, etc. But you will notice that over time, a client's going to be a lot more forgiving if one time you miss something, 5 years down the road or something like that, but everything else was great. They're going to be like, hey, things happen. But if you do that up front, it may not be the best relationship builder.
So I know that you're into like the sporting goods sales and stuff like that. So basically, you sell to a school, which will be a different type of industry. So what we're trying to understand is how do you prepare when selling into a completely new industry? Like you might go from a school to like Walmart to like, you understand, some camp or something that does like volleyball
Or
or
like an
soccer.
office, or some
Mm-hmm.
like people that you like don't normally align with your like outdoors industry.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. So and I sell to a myriad of different industries, everything from government contracts to private organizations to school boards to fire departments to military to literally like a huge myriad of different industries. It's the same concept though, is you need to first off understand what it is you're offering, understand how it fits their needs. Um, but then you also need to kind of, again, remember we're talking about tailor yourself a little bit to fit within their their key values. For example, let's talk about a school board, for example. If I'm going to sell some backpacks to a school board, then think about your own life. Think about life experiences. Think about when you were in school. Think about what it is that, imagine, let's say you were 5 years old and you had a giant backpack on your back that's dragging on the floor. Is that going to be the best fit? Probably not, right? But it's a matter of putting yourself a little bit in the end user's experience, tailoring yourself. So now I'm going to be like, okay, I'm still going to be authentic to myself. I'm still going to like be me, but I'm also going to be thinking about, okay, how can my own key values, how does that align with their key values? And a lot of times you'll actually find that there's going to be something there. You just need to dig a little bit. Um, for example, with a school board, they might be starting an outdoor ed program. Okay, well that's right in my wheelhouse. Maybe it's an office who, they're looking for holiday gifts, but then a little bit of research later, you're like, oh yeah, well this office they actually have maybe like um, they have like a climbing club or something like that, increasingly popular. Maybe they have, they you just kind of have to kind of do a little bit of digging, find those kind of key components between yourself and your clients, and just match them. And I would say almost 9 times out of 10, you're going to find something. It's just a matter of you got to do a little self digging and a little digging on their side too.
Mhm. Would you say that you feel like an ambassador to your industry when you speak to organizations in completely different ones?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you are representing both, again, if you are going to be doing that kind of method of looking into yourself and looking into what it is that you represent, what you do, and also the company that you represent, because again, going with that philosophy of you're going to align yourself with your own people, with people who resonate well with you, people who, may enjoy the same activities with you. Um, by consequence, I think so you end up as a bit of an ambassador for not just your business, but also what you're representing. So, for example, um, if I'm having a conversation with, an organization or whatever, while I'm representing MEC, I'm also representing a bit of ideal philosophy of like things should be sustainable. Things should be, people should enjoy the outdoors. People should purchase at a Canadian company. Like it's almost by consequence that that ends up happening. People might be shopping with me, for example, because we're a Canadian company. So I have to keep that in mind. And also in my research phase, I'm going to understand why they might be shopping with me, and it might be for that reason. And so by consequence, you end up being an ambassador for those values and for your brand that you're representing, but also think of the residual, think of like the sports that you're representing. Maybe think of the apparel manufacturing location that you're representing. And you never know why specifically a company might be shopping with you, but it could be something as specific as your clothes are made in Vietnam and not Bangladesh or something. Like you
Mm,
never really know,
Mm.
but you have to think of those values early on and align yourself with it, and then also realize that those residuals might be the reason why someone's shopping with you.
thank you. And
Perfect.
then we've just got a few more questions left. What role does emotional intelligence play in the sales approach? And do you have any examples of how you've closed a deal using emotional like intelligence?
Could I have an example for that?
Um, I guess let's say if all the numbers were correct, like the prices were fine and everything, but the client just wasn't sold on they weren't fully sold on this, like you couldn't connect to them on the sustainability ideals, like it just wasn't a priority for them as much, or if there was they weren't very concerned with made in Canada. Is there like a more like it's more about like your out like your sorry, pardon me, just how you present yourself is that important? I know you talked about that earlier. Knowing yourself is very important and being honest with them is really important. But is there also like a personal, like emotional intelligence that's required to close a sale? Or is it like B2B, like just pure logic?
Um, it can happen. I would say it's mostly at the end of the day of what's going to actually close it, because it's gotta make sense in the books, is going to be predominantly financial. And at the end of the day, I mean, but that said, I would say that that would present itself a little bit earlier on. Whereas why would a company want to initially, or a purchaser initially want to shop with us? Or we could take your example there where it's, maybe you've gone through that process already, but um, how is it such that they're choosing myself to go with? Um, I would say it's less so apparent in B2B, but it's definitely possible. I know that what's helped before though is, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're going for, but um, having just direct relationship with the client. What I mean by that is, for example, I've worked with purchasers who are effectively a friend of a friend, and them just choosing to go with me specifically is because of that human connection. That's not, I feel like that's not quite answering your question though, where it's you're looking more for like just myself individually. Um, I can't really think of anything that would come to mind to that. It just because it is typically a little bit less of that emotional aspect in B2B. It does have to make sense in the books. It does have to be, um, you're kind of, I'm kind of already tailoring my client early on for that, where I'm looking specifically a little bit more for who I want to do business with, and I'm doing that research so early on that when it comes to that point, like I may not have that opportunity from what you're describing. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but you kind of see what I'm saying there.
I think that answers it pretty well. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
And then our
Nancy,
next question is about technology. You talked about that a little bit already, but we just wanted to ask, you mentioned like you coded something for yourself to name your files. Is there any other specific techniques that you've used to integrate technology into um, maintaining a competitive edge?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like again, use your tools. Always be on the forefront of what's available. So, when if you're ever having to do anything twice, stop, make a system for it. And if it doesn't matter what it is, but always have that kind of production mindset in your mind, because as soon as things pick up, having those extra few minutes or extra few seconds when it comes down to the wire is going to be hugely beneficial. So whenever, like if I have to do almost anything, I'm going to stop and make a system for it if it's something I have to do twice. And that might even just be like automatic replies. That might be something like calculating credit limits for a client, or maybe it's something like seeing for example, having an automated system to send out invoices when a new purchase order comes in from a client or something like that. So whatever you have to do, always be thinking about, is there a more efficient way to do this? Is there a better way to do this that's going to help me? And also think about if you're working in a team too, like what's a better, more efficient way that our team can work too. So, for example, does it mean playing more man-to-man defense, or does it mean more like zone defense, if you will? Like, does it make more sense to have one person kind of focusing on one task? And that's all part of it too. And you can use technology all in that aspect. Um, but I would say again, always be willing to try, and don't ever get settled in the like, oh, I can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. Like, you gotta just be completely open, and some things will work, some things won't, but that's okay. But it's way better that you give it a shot.
Mm.
thank you. And lastly, to wrap up this presentation, um, my last question to you would be, what advice, like, or what further advice would you give us pertaining to business sales, which we haven't touched on?
Yeah. Good question. I think, it was just the other day actually. I had someone ask me what makes a good salesperson, and I think ultimately it's there's kind of two things. There's one, it's we've talked about it a fair bit now, is sort of that research phase. Is you need to be aligned with what it is you're selling. You need to know what it is you're selling. You need to know your client. You need to know like whatever you can about them and know what their needs are, etc. And then your job, what's going to make you successful, is putting point A and point B together and knowing how to do it. The second thing I would say is really like, you we've touched on it already, but like you genuinely have to be aligned with yourself. If the second you're faking it, everyone's gonna know. Like, you gotta really be authentic to yourself and know that what your form of selling may not look like someone else's form of selling, and that's okay. You don't have to, not everyone has to be like a Tony Robbins kind of seller. If you know what I mean, like you have to be whoever it is that you're going to be, but presenting yourself in a way that's going to align not just with your people, not just with, again, those are going to be your more consistent, easier clients to get, but with other people as well. So don't be afraid to get out there a little bit, sure, but like at the end of the day, stick true to who you are and just try and always remain authentic in that sense.
Perfect.
Thank
So
you.
that brings us to the end of this informational interview. I thank you so much for like joining. Sorry, so I thank you so much for like joining us. It has been a pleasure. Once again, my name is Culture. This is my partner, Maazin. We're both students at George Brown College, and this is for our professional selling class. Um, to wrap everything up, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. And Maazin, you have anything you would like to add?
No, I'm really grateful. It was a lot of good information, and I'm sure our professor will be impressed with everything that you've like shared with us today and in our class also when we, share it with them. I think they'll benefit from what you've given us today.
Well, you're both very kind, and thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And is there anything that you would like to know from us, or would you like us to share with you?
Hmm.
This is totally off topic, just out of curiosity. Which campus are you two at?
St. James.
St. James.
Oh, St. James. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
That's
Was
the
that?
business campus.
Mhm.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
But just to add on to that, my field that I'm doing is business administration marketing. It's
Okay.
my field. And what's your field, Mazin?
Just business administration management.
Nice. Right on. Right on. That's
And
awesome.
and then would we be able to connect with you on LinkedIn further like later on?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll be
Oh,
honest, I
lovely.
don't use it too much, but by all means, you can. But I'll hit you up there for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I
much
think
for your time.
Oh,
and
my
then
pleasure.
there's only a few more minutes left in this meeting anyways. Uh, I guess we should let you go then.
All right. Well, thanks very much, both, and take care, and good luck with your project too.
Yeah.
And
Would you like us
take
to
care.
share anything with you at like our presentation or anything? We'd be happy to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know how it goes, and yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay,
And
lovely.
make sure you take care also and you make plenty of money for your business.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll buy some harnesses or something, and I'll think of
There we
you.
go.
Okay, I'm
Oh wait,
about
can
to
I ask
stop the
you?
recording.
Can I ask you actually, do you recommend any climbing gyms in downtown Toronto? You said you were a guide. I know
Yeah,
Base
yeah,
Camp
yeah.
is very popular.